Kia ora everyone, my name's Daniela Brown, and in this podcast I will be discussing the generative tradition of viewing the Bible as living canon to prophetically imagine that there is a fresh momentum of God's truth to infuse our current context, and therefore this discussion today will explore the professional practice of education and my platform of the performing arts to discuss how to create transformative cultural change on terms associated with having a prophetic voice, strategic intent, and a biblical mandate for social change. Brueggemann shares that it is the vocation of the prophet to keep alive the ministry of imagination, to keep on conjuring and proposing futures alternative to the social cultural influences we are living in today. This mandate to operate from is both challenging and enlightening. We can see throughout the Bible examples of prophetic critique that imagine an alternative to the current epistemology and structure that values the rich and powerful. From Moses on the Mount of Transfiguration, receiving the word on two simple stones that would change the culture of the Israelites for generations to come, right through to Jesus Christ and his redemptive act on the cross that caused the traditions of that time to be destroyed. This task of prophetic ministry is to nurture, nourish, and invoke a consciousness in our spheres of influence. We are called to deconstruct what is tacit knowledge and taken for granted assumptions of what is valued as an educator and what isn't, and to realign our practice to that of the intentions of the Creator. In Luke 22:25-26, Jesus shared a statement that is the coat hanger in which I hang my educational mission on. The kings of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those who exercise authority over them shall call themselves benefactors. But you are not to be like that. Instead, the greatest among you should be like the youngest, and the one who rules like the one who serves. So today, to illustrate all of what I've just shared, I will be exploring the life and practice of two people of influence that provide insights into what someone aligned with the principles and practices of that of a prophet, someone who strategically imagines a life that outworks the biblical mandate for social change. Both Ellen White and Maisie Rika possess what Bennett Sims describes as the ability to empower, which is what makes great leadership a servanthood. It awakens the slumbering power in the souls of others. The late Ellen White is an American Christian pioneer and is revered as a prophetess of God in the Seventh-day Adventist faith, whose visions and teaching created fresh momentum of God's truth and is still making a revolutionary impact on millions throughout the world. Maisie Rika is a pioneer in te reo music. She is a passionate advocate for protecting and preserving the culture through speech and music, and she fights against the cultural liturgy of the perceived preferred English language New Zealand music by equipping and empowering the next generation to speak and sing in te reo Māori. So Ellen White, she received her first vision when she was 12, where she would be drawn up into the rapturous light and sometimes hours on end would seem not to breathe or have her own human strength. The confirmation of her ministry came, and I quote, "While praying, the thick darkness that had enveloped me was scattered. A bright light like a ball of fire came towards me, and as it fell on me, my strength was taken away, and I seemed to be in the presence of Jesus and the angels. And it was repeated to me, 'Make known to others what I have revealed to you.'" Ellen White's writings are still making a revolutionary impact on millions throughout the world. Her work serves as a mouthpiece from God to provide a countercultural narrative for living and draws people to the Bible and implores them to live out an alternative reality from the worldly norms in order to prepare them for the second advent of Christ. Ellen White posed critical questions that deconstructed education, and in answering these questions, she provided the blueprint as given to her from God and seen throughout the cosmic warfare of Scripture. She asked, "At such a time as this, To what is the trend of education given? To what motive is appeal most often made? And her answer? To self-seeking. Through this process, I too can put my stake in the sand and boldly declare that the current climate of education and how it's outworked is actually a perversion of the name. This awareness is creating fresh momentum of God's truth to indwell in the context in which I work. I'm empowered through the generative tradition of exploring the Bible to believe that in order for true education to exist, the selfish ambition, the greed for power, the disregard for human rights, the needs for humility has to find a counter-influence. And that counter-influence is God's plan of life, which has a place for every single human being. This selfish ambition, motivation for education, is creating a current climate of self-seeking as seen in the students today, whereby education creates comparison and competition. There is a culture of supremacy, which in so many cases destroys health, and this desire to emulate leads to dishonesty, and by fostering ambition and discontent, it embitters the students' lives and helps to fill the world with restless, turbulent spirits that we know are a continual menace to society. We were never intended for this in our education system. This change of biblical intent, as shared by Ellen White, has come through by our condition that we now know is our knowledge of evil that originated right back in the Garden of Eden. However, I know full well that there is a relationship between education and redemption, and I believe as educators we can partner with God to be equipped to bear the physical, spiritual, and mental nature of God. When we realize there is a strategic intent to our practice, we realize that the main role of education is to promote the development of body, mind, soul, and that our students each hold within them a divine purpose of creation. Ellen White explores a question that I have been called to ask. What is true education? She, along with the work of James Smith, explores it as a platform to develop the power and individuality to think and do. We are called, as teachers, to train the youth to be thinkers and not mere reflectors of other men's thoughts. Instead of confining the study to what people have said or written, we need to let students be directed to the sources of truth, to the vast fields open for research in nature and revelation. We need to let them contemplate the great facts of duty and destiny, and their minds will expand and strengthen. Moving on to discuss the life and work of Maisirika. She's a singer-songwriter from the Bay of Plenty, Whakatane. She's of Ngatawa, Te Aroa, Tūhou, and Te Whanua a Apanui ancestry. Her choice to speak and sing in Te Reo sets her apart from many other New Zealand native singer-songwriters. She is a passionate advocate for protecting and preserving the culture through speech and music. Her songs are filled with the prophetic vision of embracing the universal emotions of hardship, happiness, love, justice, sorrow that we can all relate to. And through the performing arts as a platform, she challenges the assumption of what New Zealand culture assumes as normal and should be silenced, and speaks the story of those who surround her.
I said, I think it's time they see it through my eyes. I pray for mistakes I never made. Children of Romania, I pray for mistakes I never made. The children of Romania, Germania,
Maisirika's song, Children of Romania, became the permission to speak and share my story. As a child, once an orphan, living in the orphanages of Romania, this song resonated and moved me. The lyrics provided a therapy and an alternative narrative to that of the Romanian propaganda. Her music and practice embodies what Rawiti describes as an outward manifestation of the inward desire of the Māori people to retain their pride and dignity and be given the opportunity for self-expression. Using Maisie Rika's powerful example of using her prophetic voice to imagine an alternative, I am empowered to consider questions that would challenge the current climate of stereotyping the perceived low social economic Māori person. Over the decades, social cultural traditions have created an environment where the Māori language and people are not an accepted for, and the richness of their culture has not been celebrated, and instead we've created institutions that celebrate and edify whitewashing. Maisie Rika has taken this call to challenge the structural inequality of favouring English-speaking songs by partnering with artists like Stan Walker and Ria Hall to produce te reo songs like the award-winning Aotearoa for New Zealand Music Month. She states that one thing that connects us all is our culture sung through music. It is a spiritual moving thing. There is an importance of preserving cultural connection, and it is okay to share stories in your own language about your own history. Becoming aware of the cultural liturgy that dominates the platform of the arts calls me to consider how I can equip and empower the next generation to be proud of their culture and the stories that they share. Being bothered by the institutions and the ideological assumptions has inspired many Māori artists to pursue countercultural alternatives through partnering with various music mentoring education programs that is specific in mentoring the next generation of Māori musicians. Pau 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 is a performing arts education platform that Maisie Rika chooses to partner with. She is able to empower her Taurua graduates to understand, and I quote, that Māori singing Māori from a Māori perspective makes us unique to the rest of the world. It is our very own special point of difference, naturally ingrained into our DNA and strongly influenced by our wairua. Through her song Taku Manu, Maisie Rika deconstructs the popular beliefs and systems from which people operate by posing some critical questions. She asks, where does your mana come from? Is it from the work you do? Is it in how well you do? What to you is mana? What to you is honour? And how do you bring honour or mana to yourself and others around you? In recording her song, she wanted the young musicians she mentored in Pau 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 to sing in it, purely because of the content of these lyrics. And once again, I quote from her. I wanted them to be the ones chanting these words right at the end, a sort of reaffirmation to oneself, I guess, that they hold the power to their own destiny, and that they are ultimately the future of our world. My hope was that the listeners would notice and feel their way through this track and the whole album, because it is for everyone from all walks of life. May all the listeners truly get a sense and feel of the wairua, the universal language of music, in the song Taku Manu. Through the study of the life and practice of Ellen White and Maisie Rika, I have illustrated my insights into how someone aligned with the principles and practices of that of a prophet can strategically imagine a life that outworks the biblical mandate for social change. I am empowered to explore my story and who I am as an educator, to deconstruct what is considered normal practice around me and evoke a consciousness and a perception alternative to what so abundantly challenges the redemptive intent of God's creation. By using the generative tradition of viewing the Bible as living canon, I can imagine that there is fresh momentum of God's truth for my classroom and the performing arts platform in using my prophetic voice. Through this, I can see that I can create transformative cultural change and a counter-social narrative of inspiring people to be extraordinary in their ordinary contexts. In conclusion, I will share a powerful quote from where Ellen White sets a banner in which I choose to stand up under as a teacher passionate in the work of reconciling God's children back to who they were created to be. She quotes, "Instead of educated weaklings, institutions of learning may send forth men strong to think and to act, men who are masters and not slaves of circumstances, men who possess breadth of mind, clearness of thought, and the courage of their convictions. Such an education provides more than mental discipline. It provides more than physical training. It strengthens the character so that truth and uprightness are not sacrificed to selfish desire or worldly ambition. It fortifies the mind against evil. Instead of some master passion becoming a power to destroy, every motive and desire are brought into conformity to the great principles of right. And the perfection of his character is dwelt upon, the mind renewed, and the soul is recreated in the image of God."